everybody? It's Mr. Wagstaff. Got cool stuff to talk about today. So we had talked about yesterday about the Trojan War, and a lot of that comes from Homer's teachings, we'll say, since a lot of it, or at least part of it, does appear to be true. What we're going to talk about today is how Greece becomes kind of the superpower at the time, I would say. One of the most influential, basically because, to be the best, you got to beat the best kind of mentality, that they're going to fight the Persians, all right? And they're actually going to have two different wars with the Persians, and it's absolutely fantastic. One of the more famous ancient wars in history on both of these with the detailed accounts. A lot because Greece really focused on education, schooling, and there's a lot of people there that could write and record things that we will call history eventually. So we know exactly what happens in these wars. Some of them are a little exaggerated, so you gotta take everything with a grain of salt. But unlike where they have demigods and stuff in the Trojan War, the story here is relatively accurate and true. And there is some supernatural stuff done by real people almost. They don't have magic or anything, but they do some physical feats that are absolutely amazing. All right. So today we're going to be talking about the Persian Wars. Let me get myself up here in the corner. All right. So let me start out by showing you this map. All right. So Greece, all right, is right here. I said right here. Don't I not have this thing clicked? Interesting. Guess it don't want to work today. All right. So Greece is right here. The big red area, all right, is the Persian Empire. So Persia has gone and taken over all of this stuff here, which is a big portion of the world's population at the time. And they have their eyes set on little old Greece right here. Now, Greece, all right, ain't trying to play. The two city-states that we had talked about yesterday in Greece is Athens and Sparta. So Athens is kind of like the capital of the time, whereas Sparta is kind of the warrior class. All right, so this is crazy. So what's going to happen? So the leader at the time of the Persian Empire is a guy named Darius the First. All right, and he obviously wants to take over Greece. Greece is in a fantastic location here in the Mediterranean Sea. So he is going to try to invade here at Athens. All right, there's actually a little piece of land next to it, and I got more maps here that we're going to zoom in on. That is called Marathon. All right, so there's a little town that he has to come through called Marathon to get to Athens. So Athens finds out that the Persian Empire is about to try to invade them. Well, somebody's coming to fight. Guess you need on your side? Sparta. All right. So what they're going to do is they're going to send their messenger down to Sparta and ask for help. Now, a messenger ain't the same as it was present day. There's no mail or anything. Your messenger is literally a guy who runs. All right. This is the famous messenger here, and it's the coolest part of this whole story with Darius the First. This guy's name, he's good when a messenger makes the history books more than the leaders of Athens. And I'm not going to waste your time talking about who those guys were or who that person was at the time. But we're going to talk about Phidippides because this is absolutely fantastic. So if you need to get a message to the other city-state, you have a messenger, but a messenger is a runner, basically like a long-distance runner who is going to run from one city-state to the other to deliver a message. Now, keep in mind, this is nothing but mountains, all right? So they're going to send Phidippides, the best runner around, and what he's getting ready to accomplish is absolutely bonkers. They send him out to run down to Sparta and ask for help. So as Phidippides leaves and goes down to Sparta and asks for help, they're going to send troops, Athens is, out to Marathon expecting the Spartans to show up and help them. So here's a map of that. All right, let me get out of here. All right. Right here is Athens. Down here is Sparta. So the black line is where Phidippides is going to run. He is going to run all the way down to Sparta and ask for help. Now, here's the crazy thing about it, and it gets crazier. It's 132 miles from Athens to Sparta, but you get ready to get invaded. So Phidippides has to run 132 miles down to Sparta and ask for help. When he gets down to Sparta, all right, he is clearly exhausted. He's like, we need your help. We're getting invaded up here at Marathon. We need y'all to come up and help us. And the Spartans are like, nah, I don't think so. Nah, we don't want to help. Nobody was expecting them to say no. Now keep in mind, if you Marathon is up here. The Athenians are already at Marathon ready to fight. So Phidippides, the messenger at Sparta, has to go back and warn, all right, Athens that this has happened, that Sparta isn't going to come and help. So Phidippides runs back 132 miles. He runs back to Athens to tell them that the Spartans aren't coming. Well, when he gets back to Athens, guess where everybody's already at? They're down here at Marathon. So he has to. So Athens, the leaders at Athens, send him down to Marathon to tell the people at Marathon that the Spartans aren't coming. So after running 132 miles, he has to run to Marathon, which is another 26.2 miles further away. Okay, so now he's running what, 264 plus another 26. You're looking at 290 miles this man has already run. So he runs from Athens down to Marathon. Now, when the getting off the ship, and this is another really odd thing about the story, Darius the First is showing up, getting off the ships, and he's doing it really unorganized. Like, he doesn't have any of his men out like he's supposed to. This is going to be really the first time the phalanx is going to be used en masse by the Greeks as well. When the Athenian army sees Phidippides showing up, they think he is there to tell them that the Spartans are right behind him. So instead of waiting to hear him tell them the bad news that the Spartans aren't coming, they turn around the Athenians and charge Darius the First. They are vastly outnumbered, all right? But they're like, the Spartans are coming, let's just go. So they charge Darius the First. Darius the First gets absolutely destroyed here. In large part is everybody panics because they're like halfway off their ships and didn't know why they were getting attacked already. They probably thought the Spartans were showing up too. That's the only way the Athenians would be this confident. They all panic, get back on their ships, and flee. And it is a huge victory for the Greeks in this first in this war against Darius the First, and Darius the First is defeated with like one battle here at Marathon. Everybody's like, yay! They're like, let's go tell Athens. And they look at Phidippides. Dude's already ran 290 miles. All right. They're like, go tell Athens that we won. He's like, yeah, because he's all jacked up on adrenaline, I guess. He runs 26.2 miles from Marathon back to Athens again. Famously burst into where all the meeting was taking place and screams, "We have done it! We have victory!" And then dies of a heart attack, like right there. So he ran what, 316.2 miles ish, if that's. So there is some debate on did one of the legs here or there get run by another messenger, but regardless, Phidippides, you don't make the history books in lore as a runner unless you absolutely did one of the greatest human feats of all time, and apparently Phidippides did, but he does die of exhaustion after this. So it's 132 miles from Athens to Sparta, and he did it twice. Now, did he do it in the same day? I don't think that was physically possible. I mean, they just act like he just did it nonstop and never took a break to get any water or anything. I mean, there's ultra marathoners that can run 100 miles in different places, but running over 300 miles, even if it's exaggerated, I mean, these distances aren't. It's still crazy. All right. I was a track and cross country coach for a really long time, so this story always really perks my interest. Interesting, though, today, have you ever heard of a marathon? All right. A marathon is a running race and it's 26.2 miles. The term marathon actually comes from the distance between Marathon and Athens, which is 26.2 miles, which is one of the many things that Phidippides had run. That is where the term marathon that we use today comes from, is from this story. All right. And that's what we talked about. So, you're like, oh, well, that was fun. Over and done with, all right? So Darius the First goes back. He's like super ashamed that he got beat. He's the leader. He doesn't mount another attack on Greece. But again, the attack, it's almost like it didn't happen because they kind of retreated before the battle ever happened. So Darius the First is going to die. His son is going to take over. His son, this is years later, his son takes over, and his son's name is Xerxes. But it's spelled with a bunch of X's. This is how Xerxes is spelled. So Xerxes is the son of Darius the First. He's like, I'm going to take over Greece. Not only does he want to take them over, he just wants to annihilate them. Because nobody had beaten the Persian Empire, and he's like, it's go time. And if you saw this map, let me go back to this map of the Persian Empire. Nope, that was from yesterday. Boop, 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 boop. All this big red area, he owns all these towns. Or all these cities, these civilizations, and all their armies all fight for the Persian empires, or they'll be killed if they don't. So, really interesting that when they show up, they have all these different fighting styles and all these other things. But what's going to happen here is Xerxes, he is going to send his massive navy out over here, while simultaneously marching his troops around from the top side to come in and attack Athens from here. I believe there's a bunch of cliffs, and it makes it really hard to try to invade on land coming in from this side, if my geography is doing me justice right now. So they're going to try to circle around and come into them from the backside. So this map right here, let me put myself here in the water. He is going to circle around again and try to come in and attack Athens from here. The size of the army is drastically exaggerated. I mean, it has to be. They're saying he has like 10 million people in his army or what. The numbers must be exaggerated. Basically, he's saying like 40% of the world's population is in his military. But it was the largest military ever assembled on Earth to that time, by far. I mean, there's no question. So when you see a whole sea of people coming at you, it's kind of hard to start counting like 1, 2, 3. So the actual numbers are probably a little exaggerated by the accounts of the Greeks, but it was, I mean, you're drastically outnumbered 10 to 1 at least, if not more than that, by the Persian army when they come in. So this is one of the most famous things that has ever occurred in warfare. And it's Sparta's time to shine. So everybody knew Sparta was legit. This is their claim to fame. So as they come marching around here, and it's a very mountainous region, to get that massive army across land, there is a little inland, and some of the Navy is going to come drop them off here, and they're going to meet up here. So they know that to get to Athens down here, they have to come through this little pass. It actually catches Greece off guard. They thought they would be slowed down coming in here through Macedonia and things like that. When we'll talk more about Macedonia tomorrow, which is the northern area. It's not really part of Greece, but we'll talk about Macedonia tomorrow. They're going to come down here, they go a lot quicker. So Athens is not prepared to get attacked. They've known for a long time an attack was going to happen, but it's like once it's here, they're like, oh my gosh, like we don't have like our bags packed kind of thing. So what they do is they ask for help from Sparta. And they go to Sparta. The conversation must have been like, hey, we need your help. And Sparta's like, yes, we're going to help you. We're going to fight to the death. They're like, awesome. We want you to go fight them. And Sparta's like, we'll do it. And they're like, okay, how many men do you have? And Sparta's like, we got 300 men. And they're like, you have 300 is all you have. All this training for all these years, you have 300 men. They're like, yeah, we kill most of them in combat. Like, so the 300 we got's legit. So Sparta sends 300 men out here to this little pass called Thermopylae to stop the largest military ever seen on Earth. Now, they have to basically come through like 3 or 4 wide in this little pass to get to Athens. So they know exactly where they have to come through, and Spartans are just going to like bow up right there at that pass and preventing them from passing. So there's a movie that came out a few years ago called 300, which talks about this, kind of the epic tale of it. It is an exaggeration of probably what really happened, but again, it is everybody agrees something along these lines is going to happen. So the Greeks go up here and just like draw a line, not the Greeks, the Spartans, and draw a line in the sand as they get like 100,000 troops coming at them. All right. The story goes that those 300 guys were able to hold off the entire Persian military for 3 days until all of them are killed. Every one of the Spartans dies, but it is pivotal because it allows Athens time to prepare and actually escape Athens before the Persians show up. So all the Spartans get killed, all right? But the fact they held off an army for 300 of them held off an army and there's no artillery or anything like this. This is just hand fighting, like nonstop. Some historians believe it may have been more like 17 hours. But regardless, it is absolutely phenomenal that they're able to hold off an army that long with such a small number. But the Persians do defeat them all. This is a screen capture from the movie of 300 of these guys just standing there, bowed up, ready to do it. Movie's very much rated R, so there's no way I could show it in class. And it's kind of a cartoonish version of it. I say cartoonish, like the epic version, like they're showing the story that people want to believe, not necessarily all the historical significance, and then they add in, some extra crazy stuff in it. But so the Spartans at this point are going to fundamentally lock themselves in history as having this absolutely fantastic situation. So after this happens, after the Persians, all right, have busted through here and are heading to Athens, all right, they get to Athens, and Athens, everybody runs away. They get to Athens after all that stuff that the Spartans had done, and they just run away. And they burn it to the ground. Now, let me clarify this picture. This is a picture of Athens, and there's a wildfire in the background. This is I think this happened in the 90s. There's a huge fire near Athens and destroyed some part. So this is a modern picture, but like the Parthenon was there when this happened. And they go through and they just set everything on fire. Setting rock on fire is pretty hard, but they just burn Athens and everybody runs away. Now, the Persians are like, we're going to murder them. So, let me go back up to this map and explain to you what's happening. All the Athenians run out and get on these boats that they have here in the ocean. Now, you ain't gonna run away from the Persian Navy. The Persia has a massive navy. So what Athens does is comes out here in the middle of the ocean, and all the Persian fleet comes out here to attack them in the middle of the ocean. All right. Now the way that the Persians would attack, they don't have cannons and stuff at the time. They're going to go through and like try to board the other ships, like try to outrun them and catch them and like board them and like kill people. Like this is the type of stuff that you had naval combat then. Well, Athens has a secret weapon. Athens has all of this planned out years in advance. They knew after Darius the First that Xerxes was going to come back. All right. So what they did is they made special ships. And these are what they looked like. So the water line is right here. See this thing right here? This big, that's a battering ram. Once all the Persian Navy chases them out into the ocean, the Athenian ships just turn around and started ramming all the Persian ships, busting holes in the bottom of it, and sinks the entire Persian military. So all the troops had gotten on boats. The entire fighting force for Persia was on these boats, and Athens sank every single one of them by just ramming them. And even if you could swim, you can't swim. I mean, you're 30 miles from shore. They all die. Completely annihilates the Persian military by suckering them out into the ocean and then sinking all their ships with this new special weapon they had developed. This is going to fundamentally change the outcome of the world, because from this point on, Greece really has no major competition, and Greece is going to be kind of the center focus of everything for quite a while in this region of the world, because the Persian Empire basically collapses after this. At least as far as trying to take over and influencing Greece after this. So the questions are like why did they have to band together? Well, it makes sense. There's too many of them. You couldn't fight them one-on-one. So the Spartans and the Athenians, this is probably the most famous story involved of how those two work together. That the Athenians are going to just annihilate them on the ocean. So that's the question. Feel free to pause me if you need to. All right. So I want to get started here talking about a very important story, because the outcome of this story is going to be what happens, is going to fundamentally change the world up to present day. It truly is. And it deals with one guy named Socrates. All right. So this here is old Socrates. All right. Right here. He's giving everybody the one finger. I don't think he's giving the finger. But considering what this story is representing, he might be. So Socrates, all right, is a really old guy in Greece after all this is over. He is a philosopher, all right? So since Greece is a direct democracy, so Socrates is this really old dude who is a philosopher here in Greece. Socrates, since it's a direct democracy, let me catch back up with my own brain. Since it's a direct democracy, the ability to speak publicly and make an argument is the most pivotal skill set you can have. Because if you can convince people of things, then you have a lot of power. So Socrates is a great arguer and has been his whole life. And basically he sees that these guys that are very gifted and rich and can take all these speaking classes and these other things, they're really manipulating society. And he doesn't like it. He thinks a lot of what's happening in Greek society, in this democracy, is bull. And he starts calling out powerful people and calling bullcrap on them. Now, he does this in a very frustrating, argumentative way. So much so it's been referred to, it is now called the Socratic method. That when he questions what you're doing, he literally questions what you do. That is where that term comes from. If he disagrees with what you're saying, he just asks you questions about what you're saying. So he just keeps asking you questions to clarify, and they're very pointed questions that kind of back you into a certain corner to where you're forced to admit that you are wrong without him ever actually having to make a statement. It's called the Socratic method. It's like if you stay out too late and you get home and your mom's like, "Where were you?" And you're like, and you start trying to lie. She's like, and who were you with? And why were you there? And how long were you? And you know that she knows that you're lying about what you're doing. And you're like, and that's the Socratic method, but just on a much more advanced scale of what Socrates did. So what ends up happening is he ticks off a lot of powerful people. The population loves him, especially the younger generation really loves Socrates. So being a philosopher in Greek society is like being a professional athlete in today's society. It is highly respected, and it is a very, very important job to have. So he ends up really ticking off a lot of the powerful people, and they put him on trial for treason, for crimes against the state. All right. And this shocks everybody. They're like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's talking too much trash about the government. And they're like, yeah, but that's okay. And they're like, no, it's not. We're going to have a trial. So he gets put on trial. Who's the best speaker around is actually Socrates. He defends himself, and his defense is recorded. It is a fantastic defense of himself. And then after he's done defending himself, they're like, guilty. Because who was on the jury? The same people that were accusing him. All right. And they just don't want him calling them out anymore. So they accuse him of treason and sentence him to die. Now, the choices here are he can wait and be executed in whatever horrible fashion they're going to do it the next day, or he can drink this poison called hemlock and kill himself. So this is what this painting here is of him drinking this poison called hemlock. He's talking trash to the very end, but he says, "Look, I'm not going to go have some public execution out here, like, and maybe start a riot." He goes, "If they're going to kill me, I might as well do it, this way." So he drinks the hemlock and dies. All right. When Socrates dies, there's going to be a ripple effect that we're going to talk about tomorrow that's going to fundamentally change the way Greece is going to progress into the future, as well as is going to fundamentally change the way in which the world will develop based off of the lessons that we're going to learn from Greece. All right, that's as far as we're going to get today. I will see you guys tomorrow. And here's the question, so make sure you answer this before we move on to the next part.